Hello and welcome once again
my ears! Oh, my nose
to
is
Crazy
bleeding.
Comics and Stories. It's me, your
No.
charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internets, is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Well, I was feeling a little cold today, so I turned the heat in my home with my working furnace up to like 70, and I just sat on the grill and just allowed my feet to get nice and toasty warm because my furnace was working and the warm air was blowing. Oh, it was a delight.
I have two words for you, Joe.
What's that?
Fuck you.
Wait, that's a French word. Fuck you?
We'll talk about it in Freaking.
Oh, talk about it now because I had to listen to it.
Fine.
People want to know what we've been up to since we last spoke. And since
I've been up to a lot of stuff other than what happened today.
I'm like 3-4 days before Star Wars. I can't really, talk about it, even though this year podcast will drop after Star Wars. And I will not talk about Star Wars till the first of the year other than, say yay or nay, but because I don't want spoiler warnings.
Well, and I was very busy last week. I had the podcast with the publisher of Devil's Due come out. I had a 2-part Batman podcast come out. Did you listen to the Devil's Due podcast show?
I downloaded it.
Can I toot my own horn?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait,
let me give you the proper introductions. Ladies and gentlemen, from the miles and miles of tubes and wires in this here interweb, I bring you Podmaster Strode.
Thank you.
Which is much better than Goody Two Shoes.
I haven't been called Goody Two Shoes on the show for a while. Maybe it's fading.
I think it should after the podcasting you've been putting out. You are definitely the Podmaster Strode.
First off, remember when we reviewed Badger?
Badger, mushroom, badger.
That was a while ago, wasn't it?
Mushroom, yes.
And even the creator was like, I don't know when it's coming out. We got the issue done. We were told this, came out in February. We found out from the publisher of Devil's Due what happened. That they have co-partnered with First Comics, which is owned by one of the lawyers involved in the original First Comics. And he is an entertainment lawyer who works primarily with comic book creators, including Neil Gaiman and other people like that. And he wanted to make sure that he had everything in the can before he solicited. He never wants a first book to be late, because one of the things they were proudest of for the original First Comics was they never had a late book. The other thing that people talked about in the past is there was a time when Devil's Due was not paying their creators. And there was a lot of internet hullabaloo about that, and there was a lot of don't ever work for them about that. Well, not only did we find out why, Family Guy graphic novels, but we found out that he, lost pretty much everything and had to rebuild the company after that. So there was journalism going on in those podcasts. And it wasn't like a lot of news interviews and stuff where it's, well, back in 2008, you did this. Tell us, explain it.
Purple pants on the Hulk.
It was more, as he's telling the story, is this what happened? Yep, this is what happened. Okay. I'm very happy about that, kind of proud of that. What have you been up to?
I've been reading comics, working, and eating.
Well, all good. You've been drinking any water?
I got water here for this here podcast in case my, lips get glued together.
Are you drinking a gallon of water a day? Because you need to for your health. You're getting older.
It's a myth. It's a myth.
No, it's not.
I don't have a gallon bladder. I'm not going to put a gallon in it.
No, what it is, here's what the myth is, Joe. All these people who are on the cleansing diets, you know how your body cleanses? You got a liver and you got kidneys. That's how your body cleanses. And water is the thing that helps you flush out the crap. The 8 glasses of water a day is a myth.
Big men.
Gallon of water a day has actually been proven in sports and bodybuilding science as that's kind of a good optimum if you're exercising, if you're hitting your 10,000 steps and maybe doing more. You need that in order to flush out the lactic acid.
The big thing is what people forget is that there's a lot of fluids and other liquids in a lot of foods you eat. So the idea that you need it exclusively in water ain't necessarily so.
Correct.
However, we got 2 howevers. Okay, you go first.
Okay. However, my doctor said because I have high blood pressure and because I take diuretics.
That's a big one.
Water,
yep.
Probably a good idea. And I make sure I get my 128 ounces of water a day, which is why, when I go to a friend's house or I go out, it's like, I need to use the bathroom. Why? Because I'm peeing all the goddamn time.
I knew it. You're not American, European.
God, I miss the crickets.
Yeah. Well, my butt was going to be a different direction because, you always hear about, you should always be drinking throughout the day because the problem is if you get thirsty, that's your body's way of saying you're dehydrated.
Yes, you're already low on fluid in your body.
When we were out west hiking the hot Zion canyons, we ran into a park ranger and he said, everybody just keep taking sips because if you're out here and you start getting thirsty, you're in big trouble. Kind of like reading Garfield minus Garfield when you're feeling down.
We have breaking news.
Yes.
News just released today.
Incredible news. I mean, we have had trailer mania going on. Star Trek, the Star Trek one hit, and Independence Day hit, and there were a couple. I call them geekgasms because you watch them and you go, oh yeah! But of course, it's all not out till next summer, so they're just teasing us.
I think I'm the only person who's a nerd who's like, oh yeah, there's a new trailer. Yeah. Because they're going to run the damn thing everywhere for the next 4 months. I don't have to go out of my way to see it.
I don't go to a lot of movies, so for me seeing it online is
even on TV.
I
don't
watch a lot of TV.
20 minutes of Star Wars already.
You got cable. I got nothing. I don't watch cable. We watch Netflix or like for Star Wars we were getting ready. The girls watched Empire Strikes Back. I don't think they watched anything else. But then we sat down and watched all 3 Robot Chickens, and we're going to watch Family Guy, the Family Guy episode. So that's how we're getting ready for Star Wars.
Going to watch Clone Wars?
Nope, but I might pull out the holiday special bootleg.
Going to watch Star Wars Rebels?
There's only one problem with that. It's on VHS. I don't think I got a working VHS around.
It's on YouTube.
Not the same.
You can watch it on your Roku on the YouTube on your Roku into the big TV.
Roku doesn't like
just how horrible it is.
You thought my internet was bad. Wait till you start getting the Roku trying to get through. It just doesn't like it.
No, the big news.
Oh, Biden has arrived early to set up State of the Union fog machine at the Capitol. No. Oh.
Joe, what is your guess on the sales numbers of the $5.99 Dark Knight 3 Master Race #1? And I will have to go back to listen to what our prediction was.
I don't remember.
I will tell you this. It sold more than Dark Knight 2 #1.
I did see the collector edition finally shipped.
Okay.
It's nice. It's going to look cool when you have all 8 of them on the shelf.
440,000 copies.
Didn't even pop 1 million?
Didn't even pop 500,000. Still DC's biggest selling book in quite a long time. #2 was Vader Down.
He is.
At 385,000.
I told you, hang around the dark side of the Force, you get kind of bummed out occasionally. Maybe if we send him a fruit basket or a drink with a really
muffin basket. Everybody likes a muffin basket.
We got to send Vader a muffin basket or something.
Yeah. Nope, those are the numbers. Comics are now up for the year because last month everybody was, oh no, comics are down from year to year. You do remember that Star Wars #1 came out around this time last year and it sold 1 million copies, right?
1 million!
things are going to be down.
They're going to be down. Tell you, I would stop by the source today, and I can't really talk much about it because we're in the Christmas shopping mood, and I have no idea if anybody I know is listening to this here podcast and might accidentally give up their Christmas gift if I say what I was buying. But they had plenty on the shelf. They had the collected version on the shelf. They had a couple of their variants. You know, and I did see they had the Jim Lee one in 500,000.
Oh, they did get that.
Yeah, they're asking 500 for it, which it's a little cheaper on eBay, but I mean they had to pay a lot of money to get that.
Okay. So breaking news, one of these days I should probably just start doing a podcast where I talk about overall sales trends, because I know I find it fascinating, but I tend to ramble on, and you just kind of stare at me.
Why do you think I got all these dad jokes loaded up?
Instead, we are now in the last week of Howard Stern's current contract of new shows with Sirius Satellite
And a lot
Radio.
of people don't realize that our contract with Solitaire Rose Network is tied to Howard Stern. So if he doesn't sign ours, we don't get paid near the much. I forgot we get paid anything.
Joe, do you remember last time that we walked out on our contract? We can't do that to the listeners again.
You're right. I gotta say that comic book name that makes me, get sick just to get the taste out of that episode out of my mouth.
Well, let's not do that.
No, we're not gonna go there.
We're not gonna do that. But one of the people on the Howard Stern staff is John Hine. Do you know how John Hine became a multimillionaire?
Powerball.
Nope.
I'm not good at guessing.
Almost as good. He was sitting around his dorm room talking about TV shows, and he said, after a few years, Happy Days just wasn't fun to watch anymore. It was still popular, but it wasn't good. And they discussed when the exact moment was that Happy Days went from a nostalgic series about realistic characters to a bunch of stunts, and when everybody came in, they got, 2 minutes of applause, and the scripts were all catchphrases, and they narrowed it down to the episode where they went out to California, and Fonzie jumped a shark on water skis. They said after that, they didn't like the show anymore.
Yeah, even though it ran another 9 more seasons, they didn't like it.
Yeah, but Joe, if you watch those other seasons, they're not as good as those first few seasons.
I would disagree. I would say the first couple seasons were kind of bland, and they started to get more fun. The shark jumping thing was stupid just because you knew he wasn't going to land on a shark. I mean, the SPCA was there. They're not going to let that happen. But
it could have been Bruce the Mechanical Shark.
But the whole idea that the show sucked after this, I guess I understand where they're coming from, but I mean, it went on for so much longer after that. And why that particular season, what were they, 4 seasons in?
Yep.
Of a 11 season, I don't know how many seasons Happy Days ran.
11.
They ran for a long time.
But he created a website for people to discuss when TV shows jump the shark. And he sold that website. He sold that website for multiple millions of dollars. He will just say it was a more than 7-figure deal. Sold it to TV Guide. If you go to Jump the Shark now, it just redirects you to TV Guide. They took this incredibly popular website and just kind of pissed it away. But I thought that we could talk about when comic books, not just series, but, entire movements and stuff, jump the shark. So I thought we would talk about the big historical times when readers kind of just left comics. Start there and maybe get to times where for us, either a comic or a company or whatever, jumped the shark.
I don't know. Last time we tended to cover something over 75 years, it took 2 episodes. Are you willing? Do you want to subject our listeners to that? I happen to know we have a new listener on this program.
And how do you know?
Because I follow these things. I have connections with the NRA.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
okay.
NSA. Not NRA. NBC?
Well, maybe
CBS?
the old NRA, because we're starting in 1935 talking about comics, so maybe it is the National Recovery
It
Association,
could be.
which later changed its name because the NRA owned the trademark to NRA. See all this stupid shit that's stuck in my head?
Yeah.
Do you know why I know about the NRA, National Recovery Association? Not from history books, but because the comic series Aztec Ace used to have the sticker on the front, and then in one of the letters pages they explained what it was. It all goes back to funny bones.
It does.
In my view of comics history, the first real jump the shark moment was actually a good moment for our country, but a bad moment for comics. Superhero comics were the number one thing through the 40s until what event, Joe?
The birth of the automatic circumciser.
I don't even want to know if that thing is real.
I don't buy the jump the shark thing on comics.
Well, I can tell you this. After World War II, superhero comics shit the bed, and sales plummeted.
Well, if you talk to, what's his name who runs Fangraphics?
Gary Groth?
He says ever since then, comics have been going downhill. I mean,
sales-wise,
there are peaks.
It's a bit incorrect.
There are peaks and valleys, and I don't know if he's updated his charts since the 90s or the 2000s, but he says from those heady days where Captain Marvel was selling millions of comics to now. And even you point out, like 99% of the comics sell under 100,000. You know, and you get blips and peaks, Star Wars, My Little Pony, heck, even Dark Knight. But they're more event-driven. They're not really sustainable. But, yeah, again, I'm in current age. We want to get from 1935 forward.
I think that the end of World War II was a really big moment for the end of superhero comics because in the 40s, you had a perfect built-in villain. You had the Nazis and you had Imperial Japan. And fighting the Nazis and fighting Imperial Japan, nobody seemed to give a shit about Italy for some reason. There are only a few comics where they even dealt with Mussolini, and most of them just treated him like a joke. But the superhero comics died. Part of it was because all the soldiers came back, so they weren't buying them at the PXs. They were, getting married and having kids and buying houses and stuff like that. But also because there wasn't an easy enemy. Now, other comics came in. You had your crime comics start to show up at 46 and 47. Romance comics, as I've talked about with Kirby. Teen humor books, funny animal books. All of them sort of moved in and sold really well. But the superhero books, by 1950, DC was down to Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman with Green Arrow and Aquaman as backup features. Everybody else was gone.
The question I would have, though, I mean,
Captain America went away in 49.
That was about the same time television started popping up. So couldn't it be that people were going to more accessible type of entertainment?
Television didn't show up in people's houses till the early 50s.
Yeah. I mean, it was just something.
And they've talked about how Milton Berle's show is what drove people to buy TVs. So that's like 51 and 52. We're talking 1945, 46, and 47. So the superheroes just kind of went, no one cares.
I'll have to defer to you on that, but I don't know. There's other historical things going on than just superheroes dying off.
Yeah, but if you look at the people who kind of chart comic book history, they call that the end of the golden age. And I think that was, while the books weren't terrible or anything, there was kind of a sales jump the shark. All right, I don't want to buy Human Torch and Submariner and Dollman and Uncle Sam anymore. I'd rather buy Justice Traps the Guilty, Crime Does Not Pay, Young Romance, Walt Disney's Comics and Stories, Archie, Patsy Walker.
When did the code jump?
The code came in 54. And I have that as like 54 and 55. You had two things that happened to comic sales. Your TV was hitting it somewhat, but what really hurt was really something. There were two things. The comics code, because it made it more expensive and much more of a pain in the ass to make comics, because you would take your story and you would send them to the code, and then the code would go over it, and if there were corrections, it had to be sent back, and then you would have to make the corrections they told you to do. But the thing that really hit, because everybody has said for years, well, the comics code killed comics. It was the distribution collapse of 1954 and 55. That was the end of pulps. That was the end of a number of magazines. That was the end. So many magazines died during that time. And part of it was, well, I don't need to buy magazines anymore. I can watch TV. You know, I don't need to buy story magazines or science fiction magazines or Western magazines with fiction in them. Because, I want to watch a Western, there's usually a Western on. I want to watch a comedy, there's usually a comedy on. I want entertainment, I just turn on this box in my living room, and I've paid a hell of a lot of money for it. So rather than paying 10, 15, 20, 25 cents for a comic or a magazine, people would just turn on their TV.
How much of that drop at the end of the golden age was kids growing up versus, just because it's always been like comics were like a kid's medium.
Not during World War II. During World War II, DC sold most of their books through PXs, which is why they had and Marvel, Timely at the time, sold a huge batch of their books through them well. And that's why they had a lot of the patriotic covers, because they were selling them to soldiers.
See, I don't find this as a jump the shark moment, though, because this is more like a historical change. I don't think somebody overnight said, you know what, Superman sucks. I'm not buying Superman anymore. It wasn't something that was sharp. It was just a historical fade. And then, of course, when you jump to the comic code, that could be more abrupt.
It was very abrupt.
But the question is would the average person have known it?
I don't think they would have known it. It's just kind of like now how Blockbuster went away. If you look at Blockbuster, you could probably say, you know what? When Netflix and Redbox hit, Blockbuster had jumped the shark. You can also point to that.
It's not anything Blockbuster did. I mean, they actually tried to.
There was a huge thing Blockbuster did.
Well, they tried to jump in on the Redbox thing by having a Blockbuster kiosk, which went over way too late because Redbox already had that market. And, of course, we know that Hollywood reacted to that by saying, you know what? Redbox does not get hot hits until 6 months after they hit Target or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and that didn't even, they learned a lot from watching the music industry implode, because all the music industry did run around and sue everybody rather than embrace the digital domain. I mean, we would have been paying $5 to $10 for albums, but they'd rather just run around, keep CDs at $15. Wonder why we just pirated them all the time.
And that's the thing that hurt Blockbuster. Most people don't remember there was this huge lawsuit against Blockbuster and Hollywood Video about their late fees. And they lost, and it came out in that lawsuit that the late fees were a part of their business model. They needed the late fees in order to stay profitable. Without the late fees, they weren't making money. So when the late fees were changed from, okay, you don't have to pay a late fee anymore, it's this much per day. So if you keep it out for 3 days, you're paying the day fee for 3 days, rather than you rent it for $2, but it's $5 a day late fee.
They also had a CEO that didn't pay attention to their business model. That's when you saw Blockbuster start bringing in more memorabilia and stuff that really didn't pertain to DVDs and rentals. And then they kind of backed away from that, and they kept, the candy and the popcorn and things like that. But by then, it was too late. Again, to me, that's more of a historical change. Things were changing and Blockbuster couldn't change with it. That's what took down all the mom and pop video stores. They couldn't change. They couldn't keep up with Blockbuster. They were kind of a category killer.
Well, and Blockbuster was able to cut costs and had volume. One of the things that these chain stores could do that regular, mom and pop can't do is they can move into an area and they can lose money for 3 or 4 years as part of their business plan. Well, we're making money over here and over here and over here, and this store can lose money until we drive everybody out. What I remember when I was in college, I worked at a little video store, and there were, 3 or 4 other little video stores. And, well, the first thing that helped the little video store I worked at is they had one in the back rooms. And I worked in my 20s, I worked at so many places that made their money off porn. It's weird. The 80s are all about porn, I guess.
So are you telling me you have a porn podcast somewhere that we don't know about?
If I do, I certainly wouldn't mention it on this show now, would I? And I certainly wouldn't go by my name. It's not part of the Solitaire Rose Network, if such a thing were to exist.
True. Well, Solitaire, never mind.
But when the big video store came into Macomb, Illinois, they had 30 of the new movie. And it was $2 a night, while everybody else would maybe have 2 or 3 or 4, if they'd have 5 copies at most of the new movie because they were running $100 a tape.
Yeah. We had a magazine at the time that we got delivered to the shop, and I for the life of me, Watchdog?
No, video business. It was like video store business.
It was a freebie magazine they offered because they gave it to me, and then they turned around and said, we have this many businesses reading magazines, and of course they always were pimping the latest movies coming out, and you could have buy 2 copies, get 1 free. What was that? What did they call that? Where they would pay us to buy an end cap, or you could run ads and they would pay part of the ads.
Yeah, co-op.
Yes, something that comics never got around. I remember
they did for a while.
The big, what would they call it? The controversy was that studios were making you pay for those big cardboard end displays so you could, put the DVDs or back then more videotapes in them. And comics had been getting them for free all along, and then they started charging for them. And comics were going, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. And we're like, you know what? They've been doing it for years in the video industry. So it's always interesting to kind of watch how the two, comics were so far behind. They had a very good co-op system in video. Maybe someday we'll talk. We've talked about it in the past, and we'll talk about it again. But the comic side wasn't that great. They had a thing in video where if you received the videos and you put them out for display before the sell date, you could lose co-op dollars. You could lose this. Although there were reports of Walmart getting away with it, and they didn't lose their co-op dollar. Whereas in comics, we couldn't do that because we didn't want to police our people, and we couldn't prove that they did it. And now they do. Comics get their stuff on Tuesday for sale date on Wednesday. And if they if they sell it Tuesday, they won't get their comics on Tuesday. They'll have to wait till Wednesday. So it's like all these different things that comics just were being dragged along. The difference is that I think comics are still around, whereas videos kind of faded.
Well,
there never
Redbox still does good business.
Yeah, they do, but there's never been a national comic book chain to really sink the local guys like Blockbuster did to video stores.
And comic stores are notorious for losing their shit about things.
Oh, yeah.
That may impact their business. When was it? 94 when they had the Marvel Mart insert in the Marvel comics?
I found
retailers lost their minds.
I've got one in one of my piles of crap. I ran across this Marvel Mart, and I thought, man, we got to put this sucker online and just read it. Because there was a little bit where, something happens in the store and Peter Parker swings in and saves the day. And as he's leaving, boy, I got to stop shopping here. This is too dangerous. And everybody went crazy about it. Not me. I wasn't Kray then, but yeah, it was a big deal. People just,
and it was, don't go to stores, buy your stuff direct from Marvel.
And it was all online. And we were already smarting because.
Well, it wasn't online because the World Wide Web wasn't big yet. It was an 800 number, and it's call this number and order it, and we'll send it to you.
But we were already smarting because American Entertainment had all these awesome exclusives that only they had that no one else could get to. And this was, the Marvel Mart, I think, was feeding right into them because they were the ones doing the Marvel Mart. So we're like, my comic that I bought on my shelf is now advertising to my customers to go somewhere else.
To another store.
Yeah.
And American Entertainment had storefronts. They weren't national, but they had, there have been some small little regional things, kind of like how Schindler's had 13 stores in the Twin Cities.
Even the source, not the current guys, but the guys who, they had their own store and then they popped up with 4 other stores and then eventually collapsed.
And Dreamhaven had what? At their peak, did they have 3? They had either 3 or 4.
Yeah. Well, one was more of a, what would you call it, like an alternative bookstore?
Yeah.
Not really mainstream, but they had it.
And one of them was pretty much just all discount stuff. And then they had the 2 main ones. And then as the smaller ones went away, that stuff moved back into the main stores. Another historical moment, I think, and this is more kind of a traditional jump the shark. And I've heard this from tons of older comic readers. When Kirby left Marvel, they said, that's it, I'm not going to read Marvel anymore.
Now, when
and
that happened,
a lot of older people who will say, when comics went to 15 cents, they just weren't good anymore.
When that happened, did people know it, or was it when the ads started running at DC? Kirby's arrived.
There was, I forget the name of the fanzine, but there was a fanzine that put out a special edition. Now, granted, it was mimeographed and it was only sent to 900 or 1,000 people. But they put out a special edition. Kirby leaves Marvel. And everyone in the industry knew it because Stan Lee went into pure fucking panic mode. I can't tell you how many stories I've read about how Stan was he'd work in the office 3 days and work at home 2 days. When Kirby left, he was there every day and he was looking over everything. And, it's like, okay, I'm going to put John Buscema on this. I'm going to put Neil Adams on Thor. I'm going to put John Romita on the Fantastic Four. We have to make sure that these books don't collapse because Kirby was what was selling them. And Kirby was this creative force. And people in the Marvel offices kind of panicked. And if you look, the next year, that's when they brought in all this new talent. Part of it was they were expanding the line, but that's when they brought in Steve Englehart and Steve Gerber and Tony Isabella and Don McGregor and Frank Brunner and all of these writers and artists were brought in to kind of buttress Marvel against this. But to me, that's kind of the first fanish that I've encountered of people saying, yeah, when Kirby left Marvel, the stuff wasn't good anymore. See, and I don't know if that's a jump the shark moment, because how would these people know it wasn't any good? It wasn't like all of a sudden, oh, look at this. Hulk, Fantastic Four 102 was good, 103 sucked. I mean, was it? Did. Well, maybe. It did. It was terrible.
But
because it was thrown together at the last minute, and it was second part of a story.
I don't buy you can have a jump the shark moment without the internet, because you say 900 people knew it, and I think a person in the middle of Minnesota buying comics, God knows where, because comic shops hadn't really popped up yet.
Genders existed.
But how would you know? How would you know it's just not one of the many, this issue wasn't all that good, but the next issue was fine. I don't.
I can just give you the anecdotal evidence.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's not true.
And comics were more casual back then.
But it's like you said, you can look back on history, or maybe that's the whole quintessential thing with Jump the Shark. You don't know it at the moment, but you look back and go, you know what? This is when it happened.
Right. That's my feeling on it. You can look back and go, this is the moment when it happened.
Well, what would be another moment like you would think?
I think this moment is one that is huge. And I think in many ways, there were a lot of readers who felt that Marvel became darker and less fun and went away from Marvel. And that's when Gwen Stacy died, to the point where the book Marvels uses that as their delineation point of the Marvel Universe before Gwen and the Marvel Universe after Gwen. And if you look at Marvel's storytelling after Gwen Stacy died, it got darker. There was more. Spider-Man had always had the angst, but it went from the angst to really bad stuff. And it took a while for it to become a fun book again. As Sue and Reed getting a divorce. Comics got darker at that point, and there are a lot of people who point to that. Again, older fans who point to that as, yeah, that's when comics weren't fun anymore for me. You had the Punisher coming in, you had all this stuff, and most people use that or Kirby leaving Marvel as the delineation. That's when the Silver Age ended and the Bronze Age began. Now, where do you stand on the Bronze Age beginning controversy, Joe?
I'm not really sure, because I guess, I started at the end of the Bronze Age. I guess I could go.
They're saying now that the Bronze Age lasted until, almost 89 or 90 now. They say it went from the early 70s to 89 or 90 when the Image Boys became popular. So we're really kind of Bronze Age. Bronze Age is our golden age.
I suppose. Yeah, I could go with that. I'm looking on eBay because they actually have a cutoff, which is something you got to kind of watch. I don't think people search eBay by categories anymore. So they say Golden Age 38 to 55, Silver Age 55 to 69, Bronze Age 70 to 83.
Huh.
Although I think
I can see that, although I strongly disagree with their Bronze Age. I mean, their Golden Age. I think the Golden Age ended in 46.
Well, it ended.
And you should count 46 to 55 as the Atomic Age.
Yeah, but that muddles the things because they're trying to keep it easier. Because then what they're calling the Copper Age, 84 to 91, which is something I don't agree with. Although I'd call the Modern Age 92 to current. Again, that's just. But people don't look for comics that way on eBay. You put in, I want Spider-Man 129. You don't say, I want to look in Silver Age comics or whatever.
Unless it's, hey, I got a whole bunch of crappy comics I want to get rid of in a bundle.
See, I would say the Bronze Age ended about Crisis, when they finally washed away the whole Golden Age, Silver Age, Earth 1, Earth 2, whatever. Black and Whites had already, they were kind of in their golden age.
And as we get to that, I think, again, older fans than they point to Crisis on Infinite Earths as when DC jumped the shark.
Now, see, that's one I could agree with, because I could understand older people being upset by it. I wasn't, because, again, this was still probably my golden age. I was enthralled with Infinite Earths. I had no problems with Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth S, Earth whatever. I thought it was an elegant way of explaining why Superman is the way he is, even though he's been around since 38. They didn't discount the characters, although they did kind of a crappy job of killing the Golden Age Batman.
That was before Crisis.
Yeah, I know, but still, it was kind of a dumb send-off.
I hated that story with such a passion.
Now, you had down direct market growth as another jump the shark moment?
Yeah, there are some people who look at when comics went from a mass medium, they're out in newsstands, to focusing on the direct market. As Well, that's when Harvey died. That's when Gold Key died. That's when comics for kids went away. And instead, comics became fan-focused. They no longer appealed to a mass audience.
See, I would always argue that's not a Shark moment because that was what probably saved comics from oblivion.
I agree.
Especially, I remember I was buying comics, and of course, the first direct market comic only, Dazzler #1 came out. And of course, we all bought the crap out of it because we were so excited by it. But I think that's what proved to Marvel at the point that, hey, you know, this here direct market is pretty good. We sell stuff and don't have to worry about returns coming back.
Oh, Madame Xanadu.
Yes, I remember that one. No code.
Madame Xanadu. Story structure, blah, blah, blah. When did the first issue come out?
Hold on a second.
Okay. You're right. Dazzler #1 was the first Marvel, 1980. And the weird thing about that one was the first issue was direct market only and all the rest were newsstand.
Yes.
Over at DC, they waited until Madame Xanadu #1, which came out in 1981. It was a one-shot because it was a story that they had put together and the series didn't come out. And it's, well, you know, we got this stuff. It's in inventory. Let's use it up. And it had a beautiful Michael Kaluta cover. If you go to Wikipedia and look up the character, and just take a look at that cover.
Yeah. And if you want a copy, it's 55 cents at Atomic Avenue. So
yeah,
you can find one cheap. And I believe it had a naked boobies in it, which would, apparently caused trouble for a few people, but not our comic guy.
I don't remember that. I think remember.
It was the poster. Yeah, and it was the way it was colored. I'm pretty sure, you could look at it and go, nipples. But, it wasn't sold that way. It just happened to be that way.
One of the things I do remember was that Steve Englehart had put together a Madame Xanadu series and had worked on a bunch of it, and the stories were rejected. Was it him and Marshall? I know Marshall Rogers was involved because they took the story and reworked it and sold it to Eclipse for the series Captain Quick and a Foozle. And I have read Captain Quick and a Foozle because I'm a huge Marshall Rogers fan. And for the love of Koresh, I cannot figure out how that was a Madame Xanadu story first. But Englehart did that with a few things. He had a few things that were rejected at one publisher, and he'd take them to the other publisher and rework them. Another, I think, big fanish jump the shark moment was when Quesada and Bill Jemas took over Marvel. Because I remember at the time people completely losing their crap. Marvel was still in that very 90s style of, the art didn't tell the story, and tons of blocks of text, and everybody came from alternate universe futures. The Avengers, that's where we got the Crossing from. I remember I once explained the origin of cable to someone. And it took about 25 minutes. And 5 minutes in, they're like, does anybody know this shit? And I said, some people do, but really they've added so much that, okay, here's what it is. He is the child of Scott Summers and Jean Grey. But it wasn't the real Jean Grey. It was an evil clone created by Mr. Sinister.
I think we're a clone now. There's always two of me just hanging around. Hopefully Weird Al doesn't sue us for that.
And you go through, it's like, okay. And then there was time travel. And then Scott Summers and Jean Grey, the real Jean Grey, got projected into future bodies.
Okay, I'm jumping a shark here. I'm already bored. Save it for your solo.
But when Quesada and Jemas took over Marvel, they were like, okay, first off, the artist's going to tell the story. And I have heard back and forth that they would say that you could only use so many words per panel No one has confirmed that. It was rumor at the time, but they got rid of the footnotes. They got rid of the text, the blocks of text. They got rid of, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Stories need to be self-contained so that they could go into a trade paperback. And a lot of people were pissed and left Marvel as readers. I remember people coming in the shop and going, I don't like these new Marvel books. Good thing was they were replaced by new readers. But again, it's a stylistic change that people looked at and went, yeah, I don't want to read that anymore.
Well, Marvel was doing all sorts of fun things too. If you ever notice, your Marvel comics from that era are a little bit smaller than the other comics from that era.
Yes.
They thought they'd save paper, so they cut the size on them, which was amazing because Diamond Comics went through a lot of expense to create a box that held these comics with little or no shipment, which is amazing because if you've ever seen these boxes, they hold about 300 comics. And they ship this stuff nationwide, and very, very little of it is ever damaged. We've talked before about how newsstand comics had the newsstand tear if you happen to get a copy that was on the top or bottom because they'd wrap a rope around them and they would bite into the cover. Sometimes if you were mailed your comics because you had a subscription, they would fold it in half. That's why you might see your favorite Silver Age book with a fold neatly down the middle. With Direct Market, because we were fussy people and liked our comics in great condition, Cap City and then Diamond also went to great pains to make this box to fit comics very snugly so that they wouldn't shake, rattle, and roll. Well, along comes Marvel, cut about 1/8 of an inch off their book so they could save pennies on their per book, which, probably amounted to a good chunk of change. Suddenly, all these books, not just theirs, but all the other ones in there, didn't fit snug. They tended to shake, rattle, and roll. And then I'd open up a box of comics and find half of them are damaged because they weren't packed in tight. Thank you very much, Marvel. That is your Tales from the Shop. I should have saved it for Festivus, but by God, I think I'm feeling the fever. I might have to just do it now. I'm better now. Hang on, I got to take the Reds.
And then there were two other recent things that I want to point to as kind of major jump the shark moments. And you could probably talk more to this. One of which is one that I didn't realize was a jump the shark moment at the time. But for me, it has become one. And that is Flashpoint / New 52.
Oh, yeah. Just go back. We've been bitching about New 52 since it almost started.
Well, and at the time I remember, okay, this is a poor marketing thing. You're going to piss off older fans. You're going to lose people. I gave a number of those books a chance, but I'm not reading any continuing DC superhero books now.
I think the only one I'm with is Justice League, and I may be dropping it after this Dark Side crisis ends. I'm still up in the air about it.
And because I have no problem admitting my mistakes. There were a lot of people who a couple of years later said DC had to do it, and it really kind of re-energized the sales of comics. And you can look, DC sales were at your average DC superhero book sold about 25,000 copies 2 months before the New 52. And even now, your average DC book sells about 32 to 33,000. However, that's skewed because Batman and Justice League sell way more than everything else.
I do remember that when I saw Brian Wilson at the last Fall Comic-Con.
Brian Wilson, who's a member of used to run the comic convention,
yeah.
older than us, huge DC fan, and the world's biggest Lois Lane fan, in my opinion.
And he all through the 90s, he was like, I don't like these. These aren't my comics. I don't know them. I did apologize.
But he'd buy them and read them.
I apologized to him because I said, now I understand what you're talking about, because with the New 52, I feel the same way. This is not my Batman, not my Wonder Woman, not my Superman. I'm always willing to give it a try, but I now understand where he was coming from all those times. And of course, on May 14th and 15th, 2016, I will tell that to him at the MSP Comic Con 2016 it's coming. 100,000 square feet of comic book action at the Minnesota State Fair Grandstand with over 250 creators, both national and local. You know, July 1st, their tickets go on sale, so you better grab some advance tickets.
July 1st? They're going on sale 2 months after it's over?
Hang on a second.
I think you meant January.
You're right. I had a little donut chocolate on there. I'm sorry. I got to learn not to eat when I'm doing this podcast. January 1st, 2016, advance tickets on sale. www.mcbacomiccons.com. Just look Midwest Comic Convention. The reason we mention that is because there was a huge line for people waiting to get in to buy their tickets. A tremendous line. It went blocks. However, the line of people who bought advance tickets was short, and they got in way before those other people.
And, you know, the other thing is there were people who were saying, oh, the con has fallen apart. A couple prominent creators, the con has jumped the shark. I just want to let people know that last year's convention had the highest attendance we've ever had. Fall Con's attendance for our highest attendance ever for a one-day show. So don't listen to the people who are saying, oh, it's all falling apart. Nope. It's no good anymore.
No shark junk in here. Nope. Ain't happening. Nope.
And I spent some time at the Geek Expo talking with one of the three-headed Hydra, you know, the guy in the hat. He sat down with Butch and I. We talked about the con for about an hour or so.
Ooh.
They got some stuff planned. More than just the Troll Lords reunion.
Cool.
So,
but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. There was
no
shark jumping at the MSP Comic Con 2016.
That's right. And you know, there's a whole bunch more we could talk about shark jumping, but let's table it. Because I'm tired of trying to 3 hours into 2 episodes, and Joe, I'm tired. I'm old and I'm tired. Okay, I'm not old, but I'm tired. You know who's not tired?
Who?
These guys, our sponsors. That's right. Solitaire Rose Productions has sponsors. And our first sponsor is the one who's been with us since day one, and that's DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com is the best web host in the whole known universe, bar none. Go to DreamHost.com, enter the code CRAZY, get $20 off your first year. How amazing is that? Our second sponsor is the Dollar Shave Club. I get amazing razors delivered from the Dollar Shave Club just for a few bucks, and I always shave with a fresh blade. Does this make me a genius? Of course it does. Now, if you use the website shave.by/C19DC, those of us here at Solitaire Rose Productions will get to wet our beak a little. We get a little piece of that, and that's what ads are all about. Our other sponsor is Gray's. Gray's delivers great healthy snacks to you weekly, bi-weekly, once a month, however you'd like. You can choose the kind of snacks you want. They're all amazing. They're all healthy. They're all good. And your first and fifth boxes are free if you use the code CORYS3R5. We love to hear from you, our fans, our beloved fans. Without you, there's no us, because then we're just talking to ourselves, and Lord knows I spent long enough doing that. You can email us at our brand spanking new email address at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. You can call us and leave a message, and we will play your message on the air. And that number is 952-856-0519. We have us a web page that is at Crazy Comics, KRAYZCOMIX.solitairerose.com. Over there you'll see some of our new sponsors and our brand spanking new Amazon store, so go check that out. We are also on the Facebooks. We're all over the place. We want to hear from you. If you would like to advertise on Crazy Comics and Stories or any of the other Solitaire Rose podcasts, go ahead, email us at solitaireroseproduction@gmail.com. Subject, advertising. If you have a comic you would like us to review, it's the same Gmail account. Just instead of advertising, put review. Or if you'd like to be a guest on Solitaire Rose Radio or Solo Joe, go ahead and email us at that same address with the subject line, guest. These here podcasts come to you free because of our sponsors, so please go visit them. Crazy Comics and Stories comes to you free every week. Every Monday, we've got a new episode, and usually we have it up by Sunday night. It's also available on the YouTubes. It's available on the Pocket Cast, on the Stitcher, on the iTunes. It's all over the place. So go ahead, subscribe, tell your friends, tell every human being you know about crazy comics and stories. Solitaire Rose Radio is a little more infrequent. It comes out about every 2 weeks. And Solitaire Rose Novelcast comes out every other Thursday. So get ready. The Solitaire Rose Podcast Network is growing. Join us. Be on board. Become a fan. Become a listener. Thank you. And we got us a new sponsor.
We did.
Yeah, I want to talk a little about them. They're called Bamba. Pull them up here on the internet.
La 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 Bamba. Doo doo doo. Gary's going la Bamba on the interwebs.
So if you're listening to this here podcast, go to bombas.gotocloud.org/SF30. And that will take you to Bombas, B-O-M-B-A-S. They are a company that sells socks. Some of the greatest socks in the world. They sell nice big bundles of socks. But you know why they're one of our sponsors, Joe?
Why is that?
Because one of the things that people in homeless shelters and people in crisis centers and kids in group homes, you know what the number one thing they request is? Socks. Socks and underwear are needed by people who are in crisis, because you could go to the thrift store and buy pants, and you could go to the Goodwill and you could buy shirts, but it's pretty rare that they have socks and underwear. So for every pair of socks you buy from Bombas, they donate a pair of socks to a homeless shelter. And they're a wonderful company. I'm really happy that we brought them on board. All of the companies that are sponsors are companies that I personally use. Bombas is one I've been trying to get for a while because I love their mission where they do this. And right now on their website, 726,561 pairs of socks have been donated.
I saw that.
So go there, buy some socks. Not only are you going to get some of the best socks you've ever owned, but you're helping your fellow man. So do it. And we get to wet our beak a little.
Pause this here podcast. Get your nice warm socks ready. We'll be here when you get back.
Speaking of wetting our beak a little, Joe, what's going on the eBays?
You know, there's all sorts of things going on. There's a couple of books I want to talk about. I sold a very fine copy of Super Friends #1 from the original 1976. And of course, if you are of our age, you know that Super Friends was the Saturday morning cartoon the comic was based on the cartoon. And of course, all of our friends.
And the comic was drawn by
Alex Toth did the first issue.
Yes. And Alex Toth was also the guy who designed the characters for the first season of Super Friends. Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice.
Ferdon was artist on a lot of them. I just had the first issue. I must have gone through a kick where I was just buying first issues. And of course, they did kind of a thing where they sort of tied into the DC universe, but I think this particular series is kind of a Elseworlds at best. But
it was a superhero comic aimed at kids.
And it ran 47 issues. I remember there was a couple of things when I was reading Superman Family where there was a Golden Age hero. I don't know if it was Dynamite or his sidekick, and he was in a holding cell so he wouldn't blow up. And they said, "See this issue of Super Friends," and I was like, "Huh." I didn't realize they were trying to tie in the Super Friends with the regular DC universe. So whether or not it doesn't matter because one crisis, one flashpoint later, none of it really matters. But the comic was kind of fun. It ran for about 47 issues, and it has quite a bit in it if you're so inclined. It's either that or Spider-Man Super Story, or Superman. Spider-Man? Super Stories? It doesn't matter.
The other cool thing about it was written by Elliot S. Maggin. Was it Elliot S. Maggin? Hold on. Now I have to look. God damn it.
And I just erased it. I had it on my interwebs.
No, it was E. Nelson Birdwell.
Yes.
E. Nelson Birdwell, who was Mort Weisinger's assistant and was also kind of the keeper of the continuity at DC. It's the only book he wrote, and he would throw in obscure characters. He would work in bits of DC continuity that he liked. He created a superhero team that was just in the comic, the Global Guardians, that was later used in the Bwahaha Justice League.
Yeah.
My favorite incarnation of the Justice League, the one by J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen, from like 87 to, when was that, like 92, 93?
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere around there. No, it was 92 because it was gone by the time Superman died. So, but those Justice League stories were just so much fun. But it was the only comic written by E. Nelson Birdwell as a series. So there's a lot of kind of obscure DC characters in DC continuity. There is a showcase of the first 20-some issues. But Joe's got it on his eBay.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had it. It's gone.
Oh, it's gone?
Yep. So,
okay. Then I'll.
Sorry.
I won't do the hard sell anymore.
Well, see, the problem is what I found is if we talk about something in a podcast, by the time the podcast drops, it sells. And I want people to at least, they can go see what I'm posting. I'm always posting new stuff or relisting things every day. So if you go to Crazy on eBay or go to Solitaire Row's webpage and link directly to it, you might have had a chance. Let's put it this way. Corey, if I say The Adventures of a Cute Little Dead Girl.
Lenore!
Exactly.
I love that book so much.
Lenore draws much of its style from sources as Edgar Allan Poe or Charles Addams, Tim Burton. It's a very dark sense of humor book. My oldest daughter, Dana, absolutely loved it. She, I think Holly also is really into it. If you have a teenager that's kind of going through a darker phase, you might want to pick some of these up for her. They do keep some of the books in print. I think they just re-released a hardcover, so you should be able to go to find it.
They are through Titan Books now.
I actually sold a PVC set that Dark Horse had put out of Lenore and some of the characters. So and that's why we bring it back. It's a lot of fun. And I just listed something. We spent a lot of time a few podcasts ago talking about Dell Comics. Corey, are you familiar with Dell's paperback format books?
Yes. Dell not only published comics, but they also published magazines, and they had regular paperback books. But they also had comic digests.
Yeah, they experimented with them. They went over like a lead balloon. Few collectors.
Now you're talking the comic paperback books, right?
Yep. Such as the one reprint I put on called For Frightened Women, which is a 1950s reprint of a very old Dell. You can actually find some of the originals on eBay. I mean, they tend to run about $25 to $50 depending on the condition. And, they're paperbacks. You buy them, you open them, you split the spine. That's one of the big problems with paperbacks. But a group called Pure Imagination in the mid-2000s reprinted the first of them. They, as far as I know, haven't printed any other ones. But if you ever want to check it out, I do have For Frightened Women. The copy I have is a little dinged. It just was dinged from being on the shelf of my store. And if you want to check out some of this, or go buy yourself a $25 original, I got it on its eBay.
Well, the other thing about Dell still exists, by the way. When you go to the grocery store, you'll see, I think they're called Penny Press and Dell crossword puzzles and puzzle books. Dell still exists. But in the 50s and 60s, they were also a paperback novel publisher. So there were they were like Martin Goodman in a way, in that they published everything. They published magazines, they published books, they published horoscope magazines, they did comics, all of it. And they still exist. They just don't do comics anymore. But also remember, Dell just kind of distributed the comics. Gold Key is the one who packaged them, brought them to Dell. Then Dell would print them and use their distribution network for them, till that eventually fell apart in the late 60s, early 70s, and Gold Key just took over their distribution and printing on their own.
So there. You learned a little
bit of weird history.
We sneak in history. I know people hate it when we do that, but hey.
No, they don't.
They don't?
You're the one who said the Ask the Strode is one of the most popular portions.
Yeah, but in this case...
Were you lying last week or this week, Joe?
In this case, I didn't ask because I knew you would know anyways, but...
Well, there's that.
If you have a question you'd like me to ask the Strode, just, you can send it to me direct instead of, because, Cory edits things. I never get to see any of the feedback that we're given.
We have a question, by the way, on the podcast.
Ooh.
You know how last week we did our podcast on writers versus artists.
We did? Oh, yeah, we did.
Superfan Matthew Guy on our Facebook page said, who wins the Kirby as writer versus Kirby as the artist on the comic book debate, on the same book debate? So if Kirby is writing and drawing, is Kirby a better artist or a writer? Joe, your opinion.
I would say he's a better artist than writer. Mainly because, and I've talked about this before, my first exposure to Kirby, early Kirby, was when Marvel did those wonderful, again, paperback reprints of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Hulk, Doctor Strange. So I was able to look at that. And then I looked at some of the newer Kirby stuff that was being published. Not the New Gods, but when he came back to Marvel briefly, and I was like, ew, what happened? And later on, I got a better appreciation for his art, but some of the stories, I don't know. So I would say as an artist.
To me, it's more complicated because even when
you
Kirby
know more about Kirby than I do.
But also when he was just the artist in the early days of Marvel, he was doing the lion's share of the plotting. Just remember, folks.
And Stanley will admit to that, so we don't want no crap from you people.
And here's the thing. Remember, you want to know how creative Jack Kirby is? All I have to do is tell you this. He created the Silver Surfer as an afterthought. It was, oh yeah, a character that powerful, oh, he'd have a herald. Oh, here, I'll just toss this character in.
Didn't Stan Lee used to say, like, who's this guy in a surfboard?
Yes, when he brought in the work for Fantastic Four 48, Stan said, who's that? Oh, this is character. Did we talk about that? No. Okay.
Okay.
But Kirby's actual writing, his actual scripting, while I have learned the groove, and I always call it word jazz, while it's not realistic dialogue, it fits in the Kirby universe. And once you get that mindset, it fits. I think Kirby as a plotter is just as good as Kirby the artist. I think because he is in his head creating stories that fit his art better, it works. His scripting, however, I never quite liked as much as the art. So for me, it's Kirby the artist kind of outshines Kirby the writer if you just go by writer as the guy who does the scripts. I will also say that I think Jack did a little better when he had a strong editor or a co-writer to kind of calm him down a little, because if you read the stuff he did by himself, he would toss out an idea and, oh cool, here's this idea, and then, oh cool, here's this idea. But if he was working with a co-writer or a strong editor, they would make him develop these ideas more, because he just wanted to get on to the next thing. If you look at the New Gods, he's tossing out idea after idea after idea after idea after idea. Imagine how cool it would have been if it would have been more like the Fantastic Four, where Stan would go, okay, yes, I know you want to do this Black Racer thing, but let's do another story with Calabac. Or let's do a story where we develop Darkseid a little more. Or let's have a story where Desaad is the villain.
Do you think because Kirby...
Giving the characters more depth.
Do you think because Kirby was Kirby, that's why they didn't give him a stronger editor?
No, it's because when he went to DC, one of the things he wanted was to edit his own work. He was he was very frustrated at Marvel because he felt like Stan was changing his stories. And I talked in the solo podcast about the story of him, which is the origin of Warlock, where he turned in the first part of the story as his artistic answer to Steve Ditko's objectivism. And it was a rich, complicated story that Stan turned into, Oh, once again, it's these three evil scientists who are messing with things that man is not wont to know. Whereas instead, in his story, these scientists had created a perfect being that was so perfect, it judged the scientists and all of humanity to be deficient. Very different story. Stan rewrote the story, and if you look, you can count that as kind of a jump the shark moment, because that's when Jack said, I'm not giving Marvel any more new ideas. None. I will reuse the ideas I have. I will recycle plots I see on TV. I'm not giving them any new shit. So the reason he didn't have a strong editor after that is once he got to DC, it's okay, I'll sign a contract with you, but I edit my own work, I package my own work, and I send it to you. At Marvel, same thing. He wanted to be a writer-editor, and there were writer-editors at the time. One of the perks you had at Marvel is if you were an editor-in-chief, when you stepped down, you got to edit your own stuff. That's why Roy Thomas was an editor and writer-editor. That's why Marv Wolfman was a writer-editor, why Len Wein was a writer-editor, and then when Shooter came in, he got rid of the writer-editor ideas. But that's why Kirby had so much control of his own work. He wouldn't work for you after 1970. He wouldn't work for you unless he had full control. Answer your question?
No, but I was going to mention, if you do want to send me a email, crazycomics@gmail.com, and it goes right to me. Corey doesn't have access to it. So if you want to ask the Strode without him knowing ahead of time, or just send it to our email and then he'll know the surprise and ruin everything we work for. Oh, makes me sad.
You know what else should make you sad, Joe?
What's that?
Freaking and geeking! What are you freaking on? What makes you sad?
Well, we got this here real holiday coming up called Christmas.
Kwanzaa?
Well, I don't celebrate it.
Hanukkah?
I know people that do celebrate it.
Saturnalia?
My sister celebrates that.
Solstice?
Guy down the block. And you do Festivus. So.
New Star Wars movie?
Talk about it next week.
Yeah, but isn't that a holiday too?
Well, only for the people who've been camping out for 12 days, yeah. And there are people that tonight, no, I'm not going there. I was going to say the first person that got to see Star Wars, they killed him, but that's not a good joke. Bad joke. Bad joke.
By the way, did you read my joke this morning?
Which one?
I'm not saying that Jeb Bush's presidential campaign's in bad shape, but they let it see Star Wars over the weekend.
Ooh. Meow.
I'm getting ready for the return of the World Weekly News Update, folks.
I can't wait. So anyways, I figured this year, just by luck of the draw, I was going to be working Thursday, Friday, so I would not have Christmas off, not spend any time with my family, yada, yada, yada. Well, then they came up and they said, well, on the 24th, the last flight out of the terminal that I work at, the T2, is at 5 o'clock. And I'm thinking, hey, I could go home, spend, at least have Christmas Eve with my family, and I'll work all day Christmas. I don't mind because we get holiday pay, so I don't want to lose any of that. And Christmas is actually becoming a busy flying holiday because it used to be nobody flew on Christmas, so they offered all these cheap flights. Now, everybody flies on Christmas. Nobody flies on Christmas Eve, but that's a different subject. I'm used to that because my dad, being a firefighter, worked 24-hour shifts. So there were times some nights we had Christmas on Christmas Eve. Some nights we had it on Christmas morning. Being a kid, of course, I wanted it on Christmas Eve because I wanted to open my presents then. Sometimes where he had to work both shifts, he would get a couple hours off, and we'd see him during the dinner that the family would have. So anyways, I was figuring I was going to have Christmas off. I put my bid in. I said I want to go home. Then, of course, I get the talk. Well, the checkpoint's got to be open, and they got to have male leadership there in case anybody needs one of them fancy new male pat-downs. Apparently, we don't let women do male pat-downs and vice versa here in the States. Somebody told me in Egypt they do, but that's
there goes my plan to get a little something at the airport.
Sorry, it just ain't working. So they want somebody, namely me, to stay. And I'm kind of like, hey, wait a minute. I have asked to actually drop my certifications for checkpoints. The reasons are vast and many. The big thing is a lot of things going on at checkpoints because that seems to be where all the bad guys want to go. I come up once a week and like, okay, what's new? Well, this has changed, this has changed, this has changed. We're looking at this. We're not doing this, blah, blah. It's a lot to do if you're only up there once a week. There's a lot of things to do in baggage. And just like you've noticed what I said earlier, sometimes I'm the only leadership in baggage. I have to stay there. I can't get up to checkpoint. So I asked to drop it. Well, I've got 2 weeks to go before I drop it. So they want me to stay late on the 25th or the 24th. And I'm like, I don't want to. I said, you kind of dangled this carrot in front of me. I got all excited, and now they're coming back to it. And you're saying, no, you have to stay. I said, that's the only time I'm going to get to spend with my family. Next year is different. Next year, the way things go, I'll probably have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. Due to leap year, Christmas will be on Sunday, so I automatically got it off. So I'm a little freaking on that. I don't know how it's going to wind up. I guess we'll find out. I might have a use for Festivus after all by the time this here drops next week. That's pretty much the only thing I got freaking. I mean, I'm comfy warm. My furnace is working great. I got a space heater down keeping my toes warm. I am freaking out my folks because I have my kids because I have my favorite pair of slippers and the left side's fine, the right side's not. The heel's coming off, so I just put a little duct tape around it. Keeps my feet nice and warm, but they don't like it when I go out in public with it. That's all I'm freaking out. What are you freaking on, Corey? What's got you weird or cold or?
Well, I'm fine now, but as I said, when I got home, one of the things I do, it's just me and the cat in the house. So when I leave, I turn the heat down to 60 or maybe, 58.
Cat abuse.
Nah, cat's got fur. She's fine.
She's fine.
And when I came home, it's like, okay, I need to record the novelcast. I haven't been home all weekend because of work and other things, so I need to get laundry done. I didn't go to the gym so that I could get this stuff done. So I turn up the heat and I start doing things, and I'm sitting down getting ready to record, and it's like, I better wait because I'm a little cold, and when I'm cold, my voice isn't as good. Why isn't the heat kicking on? And I went and I felt the vents and there's nothing coming out. And I go and maybe I forgot to turn the heat up. No, I turn the heat up and I go, now you open up and I look at the heater and the heater's not doing anything. So I just flip the switch. You say, okay, is it the blower? Is the blower broke? Nope, blower works. Just no heat. Good thing is that I pay an extra, $10, $11 a month, and the gas company will fix anything I have that uses gas. My oven, my water heater, and my furnace. Except the water heater, they wouldn't fix it when it completely shit the bed. They're like, you need a new one. Oh, okay, if I go get it, will you put it in?
No.
Will you hook up the gas to it?
No.
Why not? Well, we only fix things in the house, and that would be a connection to the house. Well, how do I get the connection to the house fixed? Well, you got to call us, and we'll fix it. Okay, that makes no sense. Whatever. So I call them, and here's what they say. We will have someone there between now and midnight.
I thought they said now in Festivus.
Pretty close. Between now and midnight. Now, the good thing is, my son left this little radiant heat, this plug-in radiant heat thing, because he had it in his apartment, and then he had it here, and then he left it. And I was going to give it to Jen when they hadn't turned the heat on in her apartment yet, but she was in a mopey stage, so she never, had me come and bring it to her. And then when she was out of the mopey stage, they turned the heat on. So it's still here, and I plugged it in and brought it over to the computer so I could at least do some podcast work, but it was still too cold to talk. Matter of fact, the only way I was able to heat the place enough that I could handle it was to go with cheap heat. So what I did, I walked around the house here and made fun of the local sports team and called people fat and said I was going to sleep with their girlfriends. It was nothing but cheap heat. I miss the crickets.
Yeah. And of course you walked outside and say, I'm telling you, the only place I'd rather not be It's Chaska, Minnesota. Ooh.
Being someone from Wisconsin
Ooh.
or Iowa.
Iowa sucks.
Oh no, Iowa gets a lot of booze too. Wisconsin gets the most booze. But when we had wrestlers come up from Iowa, they would say that, and they, "Woo, you suck, you're terrible." Cheap heat, ladies and gentlemen, cheap heat. Let's see. I'm filling out my order for next month. Now, my order last month, because mostly when I'm ordering books, I'm ordering books. I'm getting hardcovers and collections and stuff like that. Last month, my DCBS bill was less than $50.
Ooh, mine was over $300.
This month, it's going to be over $200. Why is that, Joe?
I haven't looked at previews yet.
Because last month, they didn't have a lot of really good reprint books. And this month, they've got fucking shit ton of them, including the Master of Kung Fu. They're bringing back the Spider-Man and X-Men omnibuses. It's like Marvel said, "Oh, we didn't put out any omnibuses last month. Here's a bunch of them." Space this shit out, people. Space it out. One a month would be really cool. It would really help my pocketbook rather than, we didn't have any for 2 months. Here's 3 that you've wanted for 5 years. Somebody not on the podcast this week freaked me because I got her a Christmas present. You remember a couple episodes ago when one of our part-time co-hosts was saying that she was sad because there was nothing under her tree. Joe, what does she call me? She doesn't call me your Uncle Rat Bastard. What does she call me?
Podcaster Strode?
No, she calls me Goody Two Shoes.
Ah.
So Goody Two Shoes takes her Christmas present and puts it in a box, as well as a couple other things that showed up for her.
By the way, if you ever want to not get Cory to respond, head your email where, "Dear Mr. Goody Two Shoes."
And I put it in a box to send it over with a little note in it that says, "So you have something under your tree." Go over there Saturday so that we could go see Christmas lights, which is another freaking. And I look under the tree, and there's no present. And I said, "Well, why didn't you put my present under the tree?" And she said, "Well, I opened it." And I said, "But it's Christmas present, and there's a little note in there." I said, "No, I opened it. You sent me a box. I'm going to open it." People, don't open your Christmas presents early, because it really annoys the people who get the presents for you.
Not really.
It annoys the hell out of me when people open their presents early.
Save it for Festivus.
Oh, I will. But we're going to go see the Christmas lights. Now, I was going to go see the Christmas lights over here on my side of town, because there's this place in Eden Prairie that has, tons of lights, and they're timed with music that's actually on the radio. Ooh. And it, all the trees are covered in twinkling lights and all this stuff. And Jen wanted to come along. So I said, "Okay, we'll go to the lights on your side of the city," because she's on the other side of the river. And Joe's wife has been pimping this Phelan Park Christmas lights.
All volunteer, 100% proceeds go to whoever they're giving it to. I don't know.
And I was thinking that it would be similar. It was not similar. They were some very cute displays. It's basically, they built the frame and they put the lights on it, and some of the displays look like they move and everything. But it's not like a bajillion lights. Nope, it's, here's one. Here's one. And then they're done. There wasn't any of the, here's a whole bunch of lights around this tree that looks really cool. It was nice.
It's nicer when there's actually snow on the ground, because they kind of plan it for that, but we have had a lack of snow up here.
But then, now I still need to go to the Eden Prairie display, because I want to see, Joe, the lights were nice. When I go to see Christmas lights, I want to see a metric fuck ton of lights. I want to see so many lights that when I'm walking, I feel like I'm on a movie set.
Yeah, just like the Goody Two Shoes.
That's what I want.
Save it for Festivus, crybaby.
So I am not pleased
Which is good, because that'll lead you into, we got to start a new tradition here. The episode before Festivus, instead of doing freaking geeking, we're going to do geeking freaking. Remind me for next year.
I will forget that.
I will too. I forgot what we did last week.
So, Joe, pull me out of the anger pit and tell me, what are you geeking on?
I got nothing. No, I'm lying. I got something. I'm kind of in a rut right now because what I've been doing, my wife and I are back to watching Cheers again. We watched the last episode where, was it Shelley Long left?
Yes.
So we watched that, then we went back to the first episode, which was kind of fun because you see how these people have aged over 4 years. And it's kind of fun. And then we went to the first episode where Kirstie Alley, the thin, non-baked ham-eating Kirstie Alley, was in Cheers. The one I fell in love with on Star Wars.
Star Trek.
It doesn't matter.
She wasn't in Star
When you're a Scientologist, you can have whatever star you want. So we watched that one, and that was fun too. So we're back on Cheers. I had to tell my wife we're not watching MASH. I mean, I will watch MASH, but no, Harry Morgan did not die recently. He died in 2011. Apparently that's been going across the internet again. So
a lot of those are popping up, and you know how I tell people now
when
I see one of those? I just go, by the way, just want to let you know that General Elisimo Francisco Franco is still valiantly holding on in his fight to remain dead.
I just used the line that they used in MASH, but, they're worried about some guy from Luxembourg died. They lost his body, so they're having a big ceremony. And while they're having the ceremony, the guy gets up out of bed, walks out, and salutes his flag. And Hawkeye looks at Trap. I thought you said he died. Trap goes, he got better. That's all I say.
But these are not people who get better. These are people who they've been dead for a while and they're just still dead.
I don't know that. He was a sharp guy. I mean, he lasted a long time for an actor. You never know. But I did read some comics.
Well, it's about goddamn time.
And I'm going to do like you do. I'm just going to kind of concentrate on the number ones because I can always talk about what I read that I'm digging. Like Amazing Spider-Man had an interesting surprise in it that I didn't realize. I had a question about a certain character, and by Gumby, that character showed up. I'm really digging Spirit. I Hate Fairyland. Bizarro finished up number 6, and that's worth picking up just for the sheer fun of it. Howling Commandos of S.H.I.E.L.D., kind of losing me. I mean, I'm enjoying it, but it's one of those I might wait 6 months, pick up a Marvel Unlimited. So, I could talk about those. Or I could talk about the all-new, all-different Avengers, number 1.
Ooh, haven't read that one yet.
It didn't really catch me. Avengers is going to suffer from a problem that X-Men have. Too many Avenger books. The team I want to see is not going to be in the book I want. I'm just going to have to try and see which ones I want. The last couple Avengers started out with a big bang. I mean, the first one that Bendis did was, okay, the raft blew up, everybody escaped. There was one where I think J.R. was doing the art, and they're dealing with time travel, Kang, and something with Ultron. It's like, boom, they started out big. This one kind of started out. And I'm willing to give it a shot because, first of all, Wade's writing it, and I love Wade's writing, so he'll go somewhere. The second story in the book sold me, thinking, okay, I'm going to have to stick around and see what's happening. So, for it all new, all different, yes, it was. Not sure if I like it, but it's something I will stick with. I read the first issue of James Bond 007 from Dynamite.
By Warren Ellis.
Oh. First of all, it's not a Bond you've seen before, so don't be reading it as if, oh, it's this Bond, it's that Bond. It's Bond. And I enjoyed it. I can't wait for the next chapter. Definitely worth picking up in graphic novels if you're so disposed. Boom has Klaus, #1, 6-issue miniseries starring Grant Morrison and Dan Mora. Really, really enjoyed it. The art is good. The story was fun. I'll probably not read it now until I get all 6 of them, and it'll be summertime, won't it? Anyways, it's a good story. I read from Image Firsts. I got one of their $1 Southern Bastards.
Oh, yeah. That's a fun book. I
have not picked up this book. I think this has convinced me I will probably pick it up in graphic novel form. But again, this is what's fun about these $1 essentials or firsts or whatever they're calling them. What does Marvel call theirs? I don't remember, but they're
True Believers.
They're fun just to pick up. You can cheaply try it and see if you like it. The best thing about Southern Bastards, create your own book. If you don't like it, you're only out $1. If you do, just leave it on a, I don't know.
Give it away!
Yeah, put it on a park bench somewhere. Do people use park benches anymore?
Take it to a coffee shop. Leave it there.
Good idea. So anyways, I enjoyed it. I will probably too late to go pick up all the back issues, but I definitely will pick up the graphic novels. 2 DC books came out. Superman, American Alien, Batman, Europa. Of the 2, I liked Europa a lot better than I liked Superman, American Alien. Batman Europa is a miniseries, 4 issues, tons of creators on it, but it's going to be a storyline. So if you wait till you get all 4 or wait for the inevitable hardcover, you're going to be okay with it. Superman, American Alien, as you can tell by the cover, looks like we're telling stories of Superman in the past. Always a rich area to remine. It feels like they're reminding it, but it was entertaining nonetheless, so it definitely was worth picking up just to see where they're going. That one's going to be a 7-issue series, and again, they're on the shelves now, or you can pick them up as graphic novels. I didn't mention it when we were eBaying things, but I just want to let you know the current prices of some very, very hot, well, not so hot comics. As I mentioned last podcast, I'm doing a section on my eBay, 99-cent comics. Here are the first 4 that sold. Captain America, #25, second print. Wolverine, #100. Amazing Spider-Man 375 has a gold variant cover with Spider-Man versus Venom. And Vampirella, #10B. All these were hot comics in years gone by, now in the 99-cent bin. So you can either wait and buy these comics so you can keep up with Cory and I as we continue our geeking and freaking, or you can just wait till they're in the 99-cent bin in about 10, 20 years. Your choice, but as you know, our podcast is timeless. It's on the Solitaire Rose. It's on YouTube. It's on all sorts of platforms. Help yourself. Ain't cost nothing. Cory, what are you geeking on? What's got you happy?
The first is a non-comic thing.
Other than your furnace, giving you nice warm tootsies.
Yes, it's nice and warm in here. I may actually, because I put on a t-shirt and then a hoodie and then a flannel while it was off.
Not to cast aspersions, but your refrigerator's working, right?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
But that's not what I'm geeking on. What I'm geeking on is last Tuesday, I was not feeling well. I found out that I had a very slight case of the flu, but I went anyway. I try to go every year. I don't go every year, but I went to the First Avenue John Lennon tribute night.
Ooh.
And what it is, Curtis A., who's a local musician, also worked at a number of comic shops, shows up at the convention every year. When I always say hi to him, don't get to chat with him much. He still has his Beatles haircut, wears his Beatle boots everywhere. But he gathers a bunch of local musicians, and they go through the career of John Lennon in music. They start with early Beatles songs, and then they do, the later Beatles songs, and then he starts to do John Lennon solo stuff. And it's a wonderful night. I wasn't feeling the best, but I still felt I needed to go. I stayed until they got to kind of Imagine and those, and then it was like, I got to go to work tomorrow. I'm running a fever. But I always loved that show. Joe, have you ever gone?
No.
From what I heard, it actually started the night Lennon was shot. And when the news got out that Lennon had been shot, I don't know if Curtis A was performing or if he went there or whatever, but the musicians there just started playing John Lennon songs. Then the next year on the anniversary, they booked Curtis A, and he brought in local musicians to do John Lennon songs, and it's just continued ever since. And I've gone, I know I've gone over 10 times. I try to go every year, but, there's some years where it's okay, I'm working overnights, I can't go, or, I gotta be up and on the bus to work at 6:30 in the morning, can't stay out till 11 or 12 at night. But it's a really good show, and if you live in the Twin Cities and you like the Beatles, you owe it to yourself to go every year. It's not sad, it's not maudlin, it is a celebration of the music. So, again, if you live in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities, you like the Beatles in any way, they do it every year, they do it the same day, you should go. And anybody who's listening to this, next year, going to be there, come up, say hi. I'll buy you a drink, and you can buy me a soda. Comic-wise, I read the second issue of The Vision, and it was better than the first. This is becoming my favorite Marvel book. It is strange, it is creepy, but it is so thought-provoking. And it is so well put together. I didn't know any of the creators when this started, and now I have to seek out their work. The art is very clean and very story-driven. It's not flashy, but it tells the story and uses camera angles in such a way that you kind of forget you're reading a comic. The flow is so good, it feels like you're watching movement. And the other comic I read that I was really impressed by was Daredevil #1. It's a very, like most of the new Marvel #1s, it lays the new groundwork. There's a new status quo in Daredevil. It's different from the Mark Waid. But Ron Garney's art, he has redesigned Daredevil's costume. And his art is phenomenal. The fight scenes are visceral and just most fight scenes, it's like, okay. Here's you're in it. You're feeling it. He has a sense of weight and a sense of movement to his art. The way he draws Daredevil it's very different from the Daredevil we've seen the last few years, because the Daredevil the last few years has been more of an acrobat, more slight, more happy movement. This is a Daredevil who's a fighter. He's the son of a boxer, and you can tell it in the art. He's drawn the way a boxer would look. Highly, highly recommended. I can't. It's so good. And then the last thing I'm reading is not a comic. This year, I kind of decided earlier in the year that I want to start reading the books that I was supposed to have read in high school and college. The books that you're assigned and you skim, or you cheat, or you just take notes in class, and okay, this will get me through because I don't have enough time to read this novel and do all this math stuff and read all of this stuff for history and all that. So I've read, this will be the second Kurt Vonnegut book I've read in a year, and this one is Dead-Eye Dick. Earlier this year, I read Slaughterhouse-5. And one of the things I'd always heard is, Slaughterhouse-5, it's got all this time travel stuff and it's so complicated. And I didn't find it complicated at all. Part of it is Vonnegut's writing is so plain and clear, it just kind of pulls you through the story. You don't have to work at it. But the other thing is, because I've read, comics and science fiction and all that, a lot of the concepts that would be weird for other people, I saw as normal. And at some point, we should kind of discuss the novel, because I think the time travel aspect is not a time travel aspect. But Dead-Eye Dick is the story of a person who kind of ruins his life at age 12, and what happens to him after that. And again, it's a complex story that's made simple because Vonnegut is such a good writer at pulling you in. And when you think classics and, literary work, you think, oh, this is going to be hard to read. There's going to be, I'm going to have to read a section and then think about it and read it again in order to grasp it. Vonnegut uses short sentences. He uses small words. He uses simple writing because that's how the character would speak, which helps in the fact the plot is complicated, but the reading is easy so that you grasp all of the plot. Vonnegut's one of those writers that I knew about, and I took tests on, and I got A's on the test, but I never really sat down and read his stuff. And I'm falling so much in love with his writing. For people I know who say, you know what, no contemporary writers were any good. All the good writing was done in the past. Nope, I am reading this stuff, and it's just as good, if not better, as many of the classics that, when you look at. The example I always use is Moby Dick. There's even a movie out now that just flopped by Ron Howard that's the true story of Moby Dick. Joe, have you ever read Moby Dick?
Nope.
I
take that back. I read it in high school.
Yeah.
But I might as well read it again because,
Don't read it again. Don't read it again because Moby Dick, one of the great classics of literature. It's unbelievably boring. Because it's, hundreds of pages. And if you want to know the details of whaling in the 1800s, it's great. Because he will take...
It was on my bucket list.
Toss it out and put in a Kurt Vonnegut book instead. If you want to read about how to make a certain knot that they used to use for the sails, good for you, because he's going to spend 2 goddamn pages explaining it. There is no knot worth 400 words. No matter how much symbolism you put in it. And one of the things I'm learning about the classics is there are some classics that are classics because they came out at a certain time and they influenced what came after. And then there are some that are just so good that there's a reason that they have lasted forever. Kurt Vonnegut's work is one of those that has lasted forever because it's so good.
I thought it was because he appeared in Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield.
Well, there's that, too.
Yeah,
Although I only watched Back to School for one reason and one reason alone. It's actually one scene.
Well, adding more bubbles to the hot tub?
Nope. The Sam Kinison scene. I should one day tell the story of how I was there when Sam Kinison returned to Peoria after probably a decade. But we'll do that another time.
One of those things that we will forget about until I listen to the podcast years.
Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for over an hour and a half. And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Here's all you have to know about men and women. Women are crazy, men are stupid. And the main reason women are crazy is that men are stupid. George Carlin.
And the main reason men are stupid is because women are crazy.
Nope, George Carlin didn't say that. Don't add to my quotes. Just hit my music.